Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amy Pesolano. Sorry, I just got married and I'm still trying to get used to the new name. Um, I am a co-chair of Regional Family Support Planning Council number 8. We cover Gloucester, Cumberland, and Salem counties in New Jersey, and we are grateful that everyone from across the state is able to join us tonight. We are presenting with Nicholl Vallee, and she is presenting. I'm sorry, I was not prepared.
It's okay.
She is presenting navigating the Division of Developmental Disabilities Service System. And Nicholl, a quick little bio about Nicholl. She is a transition and employment specialist with the Office of Transition to Adult Life and Employment in Mays Landing office. Prior to her work with the DDD, Nicholl served as a board certified music therapist with New Jersey's Department of Health, a position she held for 7 years. Nicholl is a dedicated advocate for schools, parents, and their children as they navigate the adult service system and the transition into adulthood and employment. Welcome, Nicholl. It's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you, Amy and Kyoko. Really happy to be here this evening. I know that it's the holiday season. Everyone has a really busy schedule, so we are grateful that you were able to share this evening with us and this presentation. And I just want to make sure that everyone can see the presentation before I start.
Working perfect.
Okay, great. All right. So the title of the presentation, as Amy was sharing with you, is Navigating the Division of Developmental Disability Service System. So a lot of times, we hear the word navigating, and we might think of our navigation system in our vehicles. So when you get in the car and you are going from point A to point B, your vehicle's navigation system ideally is going to take you the easiest route from point A to point B. But we all know that life often doesn't work that way. Sometimes there are roadblocks, sometimes there's construction and accident. But eventually we do get to our destination with the help of our navigation system. So for purposes of this evening's presentation, I would like you to think of us at DDD, specifically the Office of Transition to Adult Life and Employment, as your navigation system as you move through this transition period. Might be with a family member, it might be with a student, it might be yourself. But as you move through this transition period, it could be from school services to adult services, or this could be just into adult services. Maybe you're an older applicant, and that's fine. This system is for everyone. But it isn't a one size fits all system. It's designed to appeal to your needs and to what you envision as that good life that we all want and we all deserve. And I'm going to ask that you save your questions till the end of the presentation. I do know that everyone's mic has been muted, but I'd like you to listen to the content and maybe some of your questions will be answered through what I'm about to share with you information wise. So thanks again for being here. And now we'll get started. So this is our mission statement. We assure the opportunity for individuals with developmental disabilities to receive quality services and supports, participate meaningfully in their communities, and exercise their right to make choices. We all want that right to make the best choices for ourselves and for our family. We operate on a Medicaid-based fee-for-service system. So for every dollar that the state of New Jersey spends on services, the federal government will match that amount. This means there are standardized rates for all services. Payment is rendered to vendors after services have been delivered. It used to be the opposite in the past. And this is providing increased flexibility, choice, and then again, the quality of those choices, which is so important in this process. Medicaid-based fee for service. That is what we do. Again, federal funding matched for those state dollars for home and community-based services and supports, for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Everyone who comes into our service system must be Medicaid eligible, and they need to maintain that eligibility throughout the time they utilize our services. People come into the system through one of two programs. So it's the one Medicaid waiver and then one of two programs. The Community Care Program, also referred to as CCP, is for those who may need a higher level of care, such as those in group homes or nursing homes. Most of our service recipients come into the system on the supports program, and that is also known as SP. All services are accessed through Medicaid-approved providers, and then that service planning is provided through a support coordination agency. And I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. So who do we serve? Well, we serve adults at least 21 years of age, those who have been diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disabilities that occurred before the age of 22 and are considered lifelong, meet the functional criteria of having a developmental disability, and that criteria will be in the chat later in the presentation, be a resident of New Jersey, and again, be eligible for Medicaid. Now I'll talk a little bit about the preparation to come into our service system. So during this time of transition, we ask that families, child study teams, whoever is close to the person applying for services, sit down with that person if it's possible. Reflect on 7 areas of that person's life that can support planning for that good life that I've been talking about, that meaningful, fulfilling life. We call this the recipes acronym, and I'm just going to briefly take us through each of these. So looking at responsibilities, a person may have chores they do at home, responsibilities in the community, at school, and maybe they'd like to expand upon those things as they come into our system. In education, they may have a favorite subject in school, maybe something they'd like to explore as an adult in a post-secondary education system. Community life. So there may be a faith-based group or a youth group, some type of group or organization in the community that the person is involved in. And maybe we can expand upon that as they get older. Individuals' health and well-being. This is a really important one because it does get to the heart of a person's good life. What makes them smile? What makes them want to get up in the morning and engage in life? For me, as you heard in the intro, I am also a board-certified music therapist. So music has always been a very integral part of my life. And when I'm playing an instrument and I'm singing, I feel really good about myself. Even thinking about it makes me feel good and happy. And that's what we're talking about with that health and well-being. It's physical health, mental health, and emotional health. And these are really important. Place to live. So a person may live at home with their family now, but DDD does offer a housing voucher for those who are interested in maybe getting their own apartment. I'll talk a little bit about that as well further in the presentation. And then finally, employment. So employment is important too because New Jersey is an employment first state. So we feel that employment is the preferred outcome for everyone, regardless of whether they have a disability. And then social life. What does a person like to do for fun? Do they like to go bowling with their friends, play video games, watch films? How can we improve and expand on that social life as we move into the future? So this is what we're talking about when we say reflect, learn, and explore, because the answers to these questions are going to play a big role in what a person's individualized service plan will look like in the adult system. So part of this process includes person-centered planning, because this is a person-centered system. So one of the tools that we like to talk about is something called the life course trajectory. And this is looking at past experiences and how those experiences inform our present and then our future. So a lot of times it's easier to look at what hasn't worked for us in the past to decide what might be best for us in the future. So for example, if a person lives in a more urban area in the present, or they've lived in that urban area for a while and they really want to slow things down a little bit, maybe move out to the country or somewhere a little quieter. So, looking at what hasn't worked, that urban environment, and maybe wanting to try something more suburban related. So, taking a look at how our past can inform the future as we move forward into the good life. Another tool is called the Integrated Support Star. So, this is really looking at a person's current resources and supports and helping them to identify what they might need as they come into the adult system. So, briefly, we see at the top personal strengths and assets, and that could be something that a person is good at, what they have aptitude in. Relationships on the right, that could be family, friends, a close neighbor. The bottom right, eligibility specific, that would be our services, or maybe the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services, that first stop for employment, the shorter term solution for employment. DDD would be longer term if a person would need more long term follow along support. And then community based, and that could be membership organizations, local services that the general public has access to. And then we finally look at technology. And that's an important one because maybe a person has an app on their phone, or maybe they use an assistive device that helps them get through their day a little bit easier. So, looking at everything they currently have and helping to identify what they need in the adult system. And then, speaking of our available services and supports, this is a list of all of DDD's services and supports for those who are deemed eligible to come into the system. You'll notice on the left, cognitive rehabilitation. It's noted with SP only. And what that means is that this particular service is only available through the supports program. And below that, you'll see community transition services, CCP only. That's only available in our community care program. There's a lot more information on all of these services and supports in our Family Quick Guide, which I can put in the chat at the end of the presentation, and then also in our supports program manual and our community care program manual, which can be found on the DDD website. And I will also share that with you later. So the steps to access our services. Taking a look at a vision for support across the life course. We begin with early intervention, moving to children's services, and then that transition period. We consider 14 to 21 really to be the crux of the transition period. We do encourage families, if their child can remain in school until 21, that they do so. They invoke something called the educational entitlement. That way, they're receiving services from the school system until they can transition into our system. If a person graduates at 18, we do encourage the family to make sure that their child has a firm plan in place for what their life is going to look like in those intervening 3 years until they come into DDD service system. Now, recently, I should mention, in the spring, an age change policy was instituted by the division. This means that if a person is graduating at 18 and they meet one of two exceptions, they may be able to enter the service system prior to 21. Those exceptions are if a person is already involved in competitive integrated employment, or if a person is planning to attend a trade school or post-secondary education that isn't already funded by the division. So those are the two current exceptions. And when a person would apply, you can't apply before 18, regardless of whether you're coming in prior to 21 or 21 and up. But when a person would apply under these circumstances, the intake unit, once they receive the application and they understand that the person is intending to come into the system prior to 21, they will let that family know, that applicant know, exactly what they need to provide documentation-wise. So it could be pay stubs, it could be a letter of intent, a letter of matriculation, saying that a person is going to be attending this institute of post-secondary education or a trade school. But if you do find yourself in that situation, you will be guided by our intake unit on how to proceed. So again, to recap, the first portion of this, 14 to 21, the transition period, a great time to get to know a person's skills and preferences, which will then help to identify adulthood dreams and goals. And it's also a great time to build the skills needed to achieve those adult goals and to make connections, identifying those supports, and using current resources. There's something that we like to encourage families and individuals to explore, and this is called Planning for Adult Life. It is sponsored by the division, and it's run by the ARC of New Jersey. You may have heard of it. It's a great transition-related resource. Our unit has taken various trainings with Planning for Adult Life. It's a wonderful resource, training sessions, webinars. They have something called Webinar Wednesdays, where they offer information on a transition-related topic. But the good news is that all of their webinars are archived on their website. You don't need to watch them live. You can view them at your convenience. And the website for Planning for Adult Life is there at the bottom of your screen. So if there is one thing that I hope you take from this presentation, I hope there's a lot of things that you take from it, but this is really important. And this is the graduate timeline. This offers a step-by-step look at all 4 steps that are needed to take to enter the service system. And if a person is in that final year of eligibility, it lets you know when in that year chronologically that you should be taking those steps. It also offers the phone information for all of our community services offices. I am in Mays Landing, as was shared earlier. Our office will be moving to Egg Harbor Township in the new year. Not sure when, but it will be sometime in the new year. But all the other offices are listed there. There are 8 offices throughout the state where we have representatives doing the same thing that I'm doing. And I suggest that you print this out, have it handy, maybe on your desk or on your fridge, because it really does offer a very helpful look at how to relate to this process, no matter what step you're in, because all the steps are the same. So if you aren't graduating and you're an older person coming into our system, every one of these steps you will need to take. So this is a very helpful resource, regardless of where you are in the process. So these are the steps to access our services. Step 1 is to apply for SSI Medicaid. Now, at 18, when a person turns 18, they are considered the age of majority, a household of 1. So even if they're still residing in the family home, family income is no longer a factor. It's just that person's income. So the first step would be to apply for Medicaid. Step 2 is to complete the DDD application. There is a short version and a full version, and I'll explain the difference between the two in just a moment. But you can send our application electronically, you can mail it, or you can drop it off at your closest office in person. Again, we have 8 offices throughout the state. So whichever one would be closest to you, you would drop it off there. Step 3 is completing the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool, which is also known as the NJ-CAT. It assesses a person's independence level, and it is what determines a person's budget when they come into the system. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And then finally, step 4 is completing the Support Coordination Agency selection form. So step 1, that Medicaid eligibility, that secondary insurance that pays for DDD services. You'll see on the left, we have the allowable types of Medicaid for the supports program. And on the right, the allowable types for the community care program. One that we do like to highlight, the most common one is SSI, which often comes with Medicaid. It's often automatic. But the other one we like to talk about is NJ workability. So if a person is working a certain number of hours and they don't want to lose their Medicaid because they're working either part-time or full-time, They can make up to $73,000 a year with NJ workability and not lose that Medicaid benefit. And I believe in the new year, the income threshold is going to disappear. So really, it's the sky is the limit with NJ workability. So that's an option for those who do work and who want to retain their Medicaid benefit, because of course you do need that to enter into our service system and remain in our service system. So again, the two types, supports program, community care program, you see there on your screen. So if you need some extra assistance after you apply for Medicaid, say for some reason you receive a denial letter. We hope that doesn't happen, but it does sometimes. And there are steps that you can take to mitigate this. We have a Medicaid eligibility troubleshooting form. So you would complete that form and attach the completed form along with your denial letter to an email that you send to our Medicaid eligibility help desk, and they will direct you on steps you need to take to handle your appeal. So that's the address there that you see on your screen for our help desk. Step 2, again, is completing the DDD application. This process serves two purposes. One is to determine if someone has applied and is eligible for Medicaid, and then to determine whether the applicant meets the functional criteria of having a developmental disability. Again, can put that in the chat for you. You will need supporting documentation with the application, and then a completion of the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool, the NJCAT. So as I had shared with you, there are two versions of our application. There's a short and a full. So the only difference really is that if someone is 18 or older and they haven't been previously determined eligible for developmental disability services through DCF Perform Care, they would complete the full application. If they have been previously determined eligible under those conditions that I shared, then the short application would be the application they would complete. If you have any questions when you go to complete the application, you can contact any one of our community services offices, and they will help to guide you on which one to complete. So this is the requested documentation, that supplemental information that you need to include with your application. On the left, you'll see our necessary forms that we need, and on the right, helpful but not necessary. Personally, I feel that under the helpful column, the most recent IEP is probably going to be moved over to the left, because most people do include that with their application, as it provides a really good look at how someone is doing educationally. So we feel it's important, families and schools feel it's important, so that is something that is most of the time included by applicants. Of course, the medical documentation of the disability, and then a lot of what you see below that can be obtained through the school if a person is graduating. We do ask that, if possible, that necessary documentation be recent within 3 years. But our intake unit is known to work with families and schools to supplement what is required or to replace something if it isn't available. So when the time comes and you do apply, you can work with the intake unit, your worker that's assigned to you, and determine what can be worked out in terms of the documentation, because we do want people to be eligible and to come into our system. So we're willing to work with everyone to make that a reality. We also recommend, if you don't already have this and you're applying, that you can obtain a non-driver ID for persons with a disability. Now, this can be obtained in New Jersey for those 14 years of age or older. It's also useful to apply for other state services and also when applying for employment. And it can be used as proof of residency as well. It's an ID only, it's not a driver's license, but you can reach out to New Jersey MVC and make an appointment if you need to and get more information about the process. So back to the NJCAT. This is part of the intake process. It's completed with a trained facilitator. It takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and it can be done over the phone, it can be done in person, or it can be done via a video call. And this assessment evaluates supports needs in three main areas, and they are self-care, behavioral, and medical. This is what, again, establishes a person's budget and their tier. So we have a tier system that ranges from A through E. A represents the least amount of need and E the most. So a person who is assessed with more support needs would have more money in their budget to address those needs. And every assessment can possibly include an acuity factor. And what that means is that a person has been assessed at higher behavioral and or medical needs. So there would be more money in the budget to address that acuity. Now, reassessment can be done at any time with the understanding that the reassessment then becomes the NJCAT of record. So consequently, a person's budget could increase or it could decrease depending on the results of that reassessment. A person can have a reassessment as many times as they'd like, as long as they understand that the current reassessment then becomes the NJCAT of record. Again, the tiers. As I said, any of them can result in an acuity. The tier determines the individualized up to budget amount, and then the service reimbursement rate for most of our services. But this is how eligibility determination works. You'll receive a letter of eligibility, then you'll complete that support coordination agency selection form. That's usually a few months prior to when services are intended to begin. This is something that translates into the admissions process. And then once someone does choose that agency and they work through and they've developed an individualized service plan, then they can begin to access services. So you may be asking at this point, if you don't already know, what is support coordination? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the coordination of all of those services and supports that we've been talking about, that a person can pick and choose what best suits their needs, their goals, and formulate that ISP. So it's care management, and it is provided through Medicaid to gain access to all of the services and supports. It comes at no cost to the individual. This is purely an administrative cost through DDD. Does not come out of a person's budget. And you can access support coordination by choosing an agency or having our system auto-assign you an agency. Then that agency, once they're selected or auto-assigned, they will assign a support coordinator to work with the individual and their family. There's a full list of agencies that can be found at the address that you see on your screen. And this is how the process works once the coordinator has been chosen by the agency to work with your family. You will meet with that person and then identify others who you may want to have on your planning team. This could be a case manager at school, a member of a child's study team. It could be a trusted doctor, a friend, family member. You would bring those people together and they would formulate the service planning team. And then you'd use that person-centered planning approach that we discussed earlier to then identify outcomes and service needs. And then that team, throughout that process, will develop the individualized service plan that I mentioned, the ISP, which is sort of like the IEP for the adult system. And again, that's going to identify all those goals and then the service providers that will help to the person to achieve those goals. And then the individual and support coordinator will participate in monthly contacts. And then there's an annual home visit. So getting started, to recap, you will be contacted by your support coordinator once the agency has selected one for you within 3 days. Within 10 days, ideally, you'll be meeting with that person and your planning team. And then within the month, the ISP will be completed, and then services can begin after that ISP is approved and a person comes into the service system. So bringing this all full circle, we started with that assessment, the NJCAT, and then we move into discovery, person-centered planning process. And then in the middle here, the planning, the individualized service plan that comes together so that a person can access the services and supports they need to have that good life. So if someone is graduating, turning 21 or 18 in the fall, prior to graduation, if this hasn't already been done, we want to make sure that the person is eligible for DDD, has Medicaid, and has completed the NJCAT. We do recommend that that can be completed at 19. If you are starting the process at 18, and then coming in at 21, we want the NJCAT to be recent within 2 years. So 19 is usually when we say that that should be completed, if that's the trajectory that a person is on. And then February and March of the graduating year, submit the SCA selection form. And then in April, DDD will begin assigning an agency to you. And between April and June, that planning process can begin with a support coordinator. Perhaps they can attend an end of year meeting with the family and the student, if that's applicable. And then once that ISP is approved, services can begin once someone is turning 21. So these are some of the areas that are reviewed each month. You'll also have a monthly phone meeting or an in-person meeting, depending on scheduling with the support coordinator. So these areas are not, of course, limited. You're not limited to speaking about these areas. You can talk about anything that might be on your mind or on the service recipient's mind. If the program that they're in, a day program, isn't working out for them, they can tell the support coordinator and switch it out to a different program that might be better suited for them. And if things are going well, the support coordinator also wants to hear about that type of thing. But issues like communication, employment, health and safety, budget, provider satisfaction, as I mentioned, behavior, if there's any concerns related to behavior, all of these things can be addressed. So that housing subsidy that I mentioned before, the voucher, if someone is interested in getting their own apartment or their own place, if you are enrolled in either the supports program or the community care program, you can apply for a housing subsidy. This is for self-directed, unlicensed rental unit. You must have active Medicaid, a current NJCAT, and then currently receiving or planning to receive DDD-funded disability-related services. So how it works is the person will contribute 30% of their income towards the rent, and then the housing voucher will cover the remainder of the rent cost. Total rent must be within our published rent standards. And we do have a housing page on our website that goes through all of this, and we'll give you more information if you're interested. The FAQ. The page will include questions that are frequently asked, the eligibility determination form, and also there's a webinar that outlines this process from start to finish. So that would be the address there at the bottom of the screen that you would go to if you're interested in learning more about this. And then if you have questions, we have a housing subsidy help desk, and you can direct those questions to that address that you see at the bottom of the screen. So we're getting to the end. We want you to participate in more. If you have your phone handy, on the left-hand side of the screen, I'm going to give you a minute to go to our listserv. We want you to subscribe. These are our division updates. You'll get all the information that's coming from the division, everything that's happening that you may want to know about. And then every third Thursday of the month, we're doing something called the Transition Thursday webinar series. And you can get more information on that as well by scanning that QR code. And then we do have other presentations. We have something entitled Preparing for a Bright Future. And this is a firsthand look at someone who's within our unit. He works with me. His name is Robert Jackson. He is self-identified as having a disability, and he's doing very, very well. His presentation is really on self-determination, how he has gotten to this point in his life as a disabled person working within the state of New Jersey. It's a great presentation, especially for students who are entering into the service system at some point in the near future. It's a very inspiring presentation. Robert's a great guy, and it's something that I would recommend for everyone to hear. It's a wonderful presentation. And then, of course, we have what you're participating in tonight, the navigating presentation, and then we have an employment related presentation as well. And some general resources for you. The website I've been talking up all night, the DDD website, it's wonderful. It's been revamped in recent months, and it offers so much transition related information, employment, housing assistance, our application, of course, how to apply, home and community-based supports, and a lot more. I really encourage you, if you have a few minutes, to go to that website. You can also go to Google and type in DDD New Jersey, and it will come up for you there as well. And our community services offices, that's our online link. Again, the phone numbers for the offices in the state. I'm in Mays Landing, soon to be Egg Harbor Township. But of course, I know people are attending from throughout New Jersey. So whichever office is closest to you, that would be your contact number for them. And then finally, the main number for the division, and then an email for routine questions. I'm also putting my email in the chat, and I would love to be your resource if you have questions after tonight. Sometimes I know it's a lot of information, and we want to digest it sometimes and maybe take a day or two to think about it. But if that happens for you, I mean, you can't think of anything you want to ask tonight, then I am very happy to help answer any of your questions at any time. So again, division updates. We want you to stay informed. If you didn't have your phone and you still want to subscribe, we encourage you to go to that address that you see there and write division update subscribe in the subject line, and you'll be added to the list. And then there are our help desks. So the transition help desk is manned by my unit. So if you have transition related questions, you can also reach out to that desk. And then supports program, Medicaid eligibility again, and then that fee for service implementation help desk. So thank you so much, everyone, again, for being here with me tonight. I know that this can be a complicated process involving some anxiety at times. And it can be sometimes frustrating because there's so much information that is being shared, not only tonight, but I'm sure you've had a lot of other information from different sources being provided to you. So we try to condense it into the most manageable format possible. I hope that you've gained some insights into the process tonight. And again, my division and myself are always here to help you. So I really appreciate your time, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have tonight.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
You're welcome.
And I think, Amy, we can move to the Q&A. There are a couple of questions coming in.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. Amy, do you want me to?
It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, okay, so let's do this. So the first question, my son uses a wheelchair. Is there a list of transportation vendors who work with DDD that can transport a wheelchair?
I'm sure there are. What part of the state is the person based in? Do we
Doesn't say.
know?
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully they'll come in and give us some more information in the Q&A again.
Yes, and they can always reach out to me as well via email, and I can provide that information for them because I can look that up. But I'm sure, yeah, we do. Part of the DDD budget can be used for transportation, and there's Access Link. There are also Uber and Lyft. And when these agencies are working with our clients, they're aware of the client's disabilities, the circumstances. So I'm sure that there are a myriad of agencies that would be helpful in working with the person, but I can try to narrow it down a bit more once I get a chance to research that a little bit.
I think this is the person who submitted the questions. So she said Northern New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah, I can if she'd like to email me directly, I can try to provide a little bit more detail for her.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the process involved in becoming a support coordinator?
Oh, well, we do have a page that has information on that I can send that person as well if they would like to email me.
Okay,
Yeah, they definitely have to be DDD approved because all of our agencies are DDD approved providers. But there's a process, and I can provide that info.
great. Nicole's email address is in the chat box, everyone.
Yes, and feel free anytime to reach out to me if you have questions after this evening as well.
Okay, the next person, where can we find more information on the workability programs? So Miguel, I actually know the link. It's actually
Oh,
workability is a part of Medicaid that's administrated by Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services, different division. So I will put the link in the chat box soon.
wonderful. I have another one for you as well, Kyoko.
Oh, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already in the chat box.
I
Thank
just put it in there for you. Yeah.
All right. And I think a related question actually from a different attendees. How do we sign up for workability? So again, check out that website. It's there. And there are a couple of thank yous. Wonderful
Oh,
presentation, great presentation.
oh, thank you too. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And next one is from Magalia. I'd like to, okay. So she is asking some support regarding your child's support and disabilities. So Magalia, please give me, I'll put my email address and Nicole's email address between us. We can assist you with that. And also, Magalia, how can I say this in Spanish? It's actually a question is written in Spanish. So,
Okay.
hablo español un poquito, pero tengo language line. Tenemos un intérprete. Por favor, give me a call. That's the extension of my Spanish. So,
That's probably the extent of mine, unfortunately, also.
You did really well, better than me.
I'll put my contact information in the chat box, Magalia. Please decide to get the webinars. I believe this is you meant the link to the recording and where we are going to upload the recording. So everyone, I will send you the link to the recording within 48 hours after this meeting concluded. And you can also go to YouTube, New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities account. All our archives will be there as well. Okay. Is there a list of disabilities that are eligible for DDD services?
Yeah, I can also send that to a person if they'd like to email me. But there's a variety. I mean, it's really, you know, pretty open-ended. I mean, there's a lot of disabilities that qualify. If you have specific question about, a more a specific question about a certain type of disability, I can try to provide some insight into that if you want to contact me directly.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
My daughter is blind and autistic. She currently has one-to-one at school. Would she be able to get a one-to-one at the adult day program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are supports for that. And there's a lot more information about all of the services and supports. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyoko, did I put that in the chat? The Family Quick Guide? I'm going to look through here and see.
Yeah, if you can find it, that's great. So
There we go. Yep.
this is actually a great promotional moment for the Regional Family Support Planning Councils. So the Regional Family Support Planning Councils, in collaboration with the Division of Developmental Disabilities, created that quick guide. Policies and manual is great, but it's just a little over 200 pages. Knowing everyone has a very busy life, we condensed to about 20-25 pages so that you can have a quick start.
Yeah.
And thank you for putting the link. And it's also available in Spanish. And if you need a Korean translation version, please contact me because we do have a Korean version too.
Oh, great. That's great.
I tried to subscribe to the scan the page, but it says that it was rejected. Similar commands already pending.
Oh. Well, send me an email and I will subscribe you to the listserv myself. I'll do it.
Are there any DDD approved psychiatrists who can conduct assessment for my son to be Medicaid eligible?
I know in certain circumstances when a person is applying for DDD, if a psychological assessment is required, we are able to provide a doctor to do that. I'm not sure for Medicaid. I think that would be a Medicaid question. They would be able to determine that for the person. Yeah, that would be separate from what we do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the process for applying for DDD for a 50-year-old adult? Is it the same as for a person reaching the age 21?
It would be, yes. And a person at that age would be able to just, as long as they have Medicaid, if they have adult Medicaid, they could begin the process and apply for our services. And then in terms of supporting documentation, we would work with the person to see what's available. We would need the diagnosis, and then any other supporting documentation that supports the diagnosis would be required. But then intake would be able to tell the person what they can provide to supplement the application. But it's the same process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about self-directed?
Yeah, so self-directed services, a lot of people do that, rather than go through support coordination for certain things, they can hire their own employees to assist them with services. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add a link from our site, talks more about this in greater detail. So there it is in the chat.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple more thank yous. Does
Thank
DDD
you.
work with related health providers to help evaluate individuals to determine eligibility? For example, are there speech therapists that are assigned to cases?
Well, when a person does come into the service system, that's one of the services that we offer. If it is needed to help determine eligibility, that would be up to the intake worker that the person is assigned to go over that. So if that's what one of the things that is actually needed for the person to be fully evaluated to come into the system, then the intake worker would coordinate that with the person. And so we would be able to see if DDD can provide someone to do that, or if it would be an outside provider that would come in to do that. That would be determined through the intake process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Transportation related question. This person's son was approved for a day program 10 miles away, and his budget does not cover transportation. And it sounds like he tried Uber, but the Uber is not the option due to his abilities,
Mm-hmm.
ability to communicate.
I would say that that would be a question for the support coordinator. That person would have more insight into that part of the process. I know transportation in New Jersey can be a bone of contention, and I know that there are steps being taken to try to make this a little bit easier in terms of the process. But I would say the support coordinator should be the point of contact for that type of a question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is somewhat the segue. So to the next person's comment, I think it's not a question, but a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
successful that one can change the programs and or coordinator if need be. Thanks for the webinar. So yes, many families told me that it's actually a great relief or some reassurance that sometimes you can work out with your support coordinators, and then if you're not satisfied with your support coordinators, sometimes they decided to request a different one within the same agency, and if
Yeah.
it still doesn't work out, they decided to change the agency, and it's
Yeah.
it's actually a very easy process, and there is a form for it. Maybe I can pull out the form.
Yeah, you're right. You can change as many times as you want. We just ask that a person remains with the agency for at least a month just to see, if it's working. But yeah, you can change the coordinator. It's like changing a doctor. Sometimes we just don't gel with someone, and that's life. That's part of life. And you might sign up with an agency initially and you're assigned a coordinator, and maybe it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. And that is okay. We want people to feel comfortable in knowing that if an agency isn't working for them or their loved one, or if there's a program that's not working, that's a time to really, when you're meeting with that support coordinator, to talk to them about that and say, okay, like this day program really isn't meeting my son's needs. Can we find another one that might be better suited for him? Or talking to the agency if the coordinator isn't working out. It's okay to make that switch and to know that you're able to do that.
Mhm.
I'm looking for that link myself right now.
Oh, Amy, got it.
I just put it in there.
Oh, okay, Amy. All right, thanks. I had just pulled it up, but that's exactly right. Thank
Great.
you.
So, how the day programs are monitored by the government, I guess, the state.
Well, they're all monitored. All the programs, all the providers are monitored through DDD, and they have to meet certain standards. So they have to, they're evaluated just like the support coordination agencies are. And there are certain criteria that need to be met. And if they don't meet those criteria, they might lose their DDD approved status. So, it's like the support coordination agencies. There's a degree of oversight that, um, exists for that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so everyone, chat is not like you attendees cannot type in the chat box. So if you have any questions and comment, please type it in the Q&A. And Nicholl, I just want you to make sure that your chat box, when you are dropping the information, please choose like everyone, so that all attendees
Mm.
as well.
Uh-oh. Okay.
All right.
So should I copy and paste all of these things?
Oh, no, don't worry. Like I actually put the most of them
Oh, okay. Yeah,
moving forward.
I had my setting on hosts and panelists. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
Can you work full time and still be under DDD? Is there a map?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we have different Medicaid waivers. So yes, we want people to work. That's something that we strongly encourage. And of course, we want someone to be involved with DDD. And of course, say they come through DVRS and they need more long-term follow-along employment support, then that's available through the DDD budget. So employment is really important. We really encourage people, if they want to work, if they're able to work, that they find a type of job that they can thrive in, that they love. And yeah, if we had everyone working, we'd be thrilled. That's exactly what the goal is. We want people to be feeling good about themselves and feeling a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day, something that they really like doing.
Right. And then I think it's also like New Jersey has workabilities. There are links
Yeah.
being posted in Q&A.
Mhm.
I will, put again in the chat box. So New Jersey has workability, and it's a great system for people who have full-time job and then also
Mhm.
continue to have Medicaid. And I'm really pleased to, share with you that there are a group of very strong advocates, family advocates, and individual advocates who actually make the workability even more accessible and flexible for many. So they're making
Good.
lots of great changes, and more to come. I'm very glad to see that, the voice people with the lived experience and their family members are being heard, and then system is responding particularly for this workability.
Yes, I'm involved personally in something called Project Search, which is an internship program throughout the state at different sites. So I'm in South Jersey and Washington Township at the Jefferson Hospital site. And one of the interns that's working there, we had his employment planning meeting this morning, and he's receiving benefits counseling through DVRS. So he's going to be getting, a lot of great information on SSI, Medicaid, which one he should be applying for, really just guiding him in that process. So that's really important, is to have the best information at hand, the best people possible to help share that information. And then you can make the best choices for yourselves once you have that information at hand.
Right, great. Um, so I will, put the link, and then please go to the workability, website, because they recently updated. So that explain, like, as of February 1st, 2024, New Jersey workability no longer limits eligibility based on income. So keeps, or changing for the better for this one.
Yes.
Okay. And I think the same person sent another question, like a project search for adults over 21 question mark.
Yeah, it actually is. So we do have adult interns in Project Search, and it's great. It's a 10-month rotation. There's 3 different internships a person rotates through at whatever the host site they're involved in happens to be. And it's an amazing program that teaches so many different skills. And I noticed the younger students that I work with, from beginning to end, the confidence boost that they receive, and just the feeling of self-satisfaction and knowing that they're doing a job and that it's an important job, especially at the hospital, where a lot of these students work. They're involved in patient transport, they're involved in dietary, supply chain, very important jobs in the hospital. And a lot of the students, even the adult students, get hired by the host sites that we work with. It's a high percentage of that. So yes, it is something that we do have adult students as well. I'm going to post something. So I'm going to post the homepage for Project Search, but there are sites all different counties throughout the state. It's a great program. It was instituted in Cincinnati at Children's Hospital. That's where it initiated. And I believe there's even sites in Iceland at this point. So this is becoming a worldwide success story.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I think the same person who had a transportation issues. So they already spoke with the support coordinators, and then they suggested that they may have to pay out of pocket for transportation.
Okay. I'm sorry to
I
hear that.
think it's a please contact us because I think this will require more information so that we can better assist you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think other comments and questions are also a little bit case specific. So I suggest that, you reach out to Nicholl or myself so that we can have offline conversation and problem solving discussion as well.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We're getting more questions now. If the person is 26 or younger, can they stay on their parents' insurance? Medicaid is required.
So the Medicaid for DDD services is a secondary insurance. It's not a health insurance per se. It's that waiver that pays for our programs. So I don't believe it's a problem for a person to stay on their parents' health insurance until that age. And if they're working prior to 26, they may have their own health insurance. But the waiver is to pay for us. That's what that Medicaid portion is for.
Are the programs mandated to develop a service plan for each individual?
Yes, every individualized service plan is exactly that. It's for the person-centered planning for that specific person. And then the services and supports are designed to help that person reach their individual goals.
Yes. Okay, and I think that's about it. Oh, Nicholl, like project search information, is that on? Okay, so it is on the chat box. Project search information link is in the chat box, and I will put Nicholl's email address on the chat box, and so is mine. Okay. Your child can stay on your health insurance after age 26 in many cases. Private insurance is primary and Medicaid is payer of last resort. Thank you for the additional information.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think this is all, but before we leave, as I said, there are two quick surveys. Nicholl and myself take your feedback very, very seriously. So I will drop the first link. This is for Nicholl. She's collecting evaluation so that, she told me that she takes the, your feedback very seriously, and then she makes a change according to the feedback she gets. And second one is actually from us. So we also
Thank
take
you so
your
much.
feedback very seriously. Survey Monkey one, I promise it's a really quick one, and there are
Yeah.
sections you can tell us what you liked about and what you would like us to improve. And for the future forum like this, please let us know what topic you would like to have, and so that we can share with Amy. Okay.
Ours is short too, Kyoko. Ours isn't a long one.
Yes.
Nobody likes long surveys. I don't either.
No. No. And then, if you want to, provide additional feedback or questions, Nicole's email address is in the chat box, so it's mine. But I think that's it. Amy, would you like to have closing remarks?
I just want to thank everyone that attended, and thank you, Nicholl, for a wonderful presentation. Koyoko, you were amazing as always, as our tech running things behind the scenes for us between the chats and the Q&As. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, and I'll see my normal group in January.
Thank you,
very much,
ladies.
everyone.
I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you having me tonight. And this was really a great group. So I love the questions. And if anybody wants to contact me, like the ladies said, please, reach out to me personally.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Happy holidays.